Hello everyone, how are you doing today? Welcome to another Ayodeji Alfred's video. In today's video, I'm going to start with interesting news that shows that Microsoft is now a $2 trillion business. Now, this news has made me think very long and hard about this business and is making me want to invest in the business. So, in this video, I'm just going to be analyzing and running through the business, and then, of course, at the end of the day, hopefully making an investment rather. Now, it is a $2 trillion business. It's interesting news. It's also announcing, Windows 11, and of course, it is joining Apple in that exclusive $1 trillion business, $2 trillion business rather. Apple achieved that feat in August 2011, according to this report here from The Verge. All right. So if we look at the business as a whole, we can see that the business is currently trading at $265 for a share. All right. And if we look at the 52-week high and low, we can see that that range has been between 193 to $267 a share, right? So you might say that you should, the lowest prices at which one could buy this business has really gone past. But nonetheless, I believe this is a great business, and I believe there is more room for growth here. All right, so before we jump right in, a bit of housekeeping here. I would like to say thank you to everyone who has subscribed to the channel. I'd like to say thank you to everyone who watched the last video where I talked about investing in Domino's Pizza. If you haven't watched that video, the link is going to be somewhere up here, so you can go ahead and watch the video either here or on the other side. You can click on that video and watch that video. Also, I'm going to be showing you my portfolio update. Like we said last week, we discussed about Domino Pizza. So here is my portfolio showing that I indeed invested in that shares. I hope you can see very well on the screen over there. The shares of that business is about 2% up since I invested, but that's not the goal. The goal is to hold for a long period of time and hopefully at some point in the future, be proud of what I am doing here. And of course, I'm also going to encourage everyone to, learn more about investing. Let's learn together along the way. And of course, let's be able to build something we can be proud of at some point in the future. All right. To the meat of the business, let's try to understand, how Microsoft makes money, right? If we can agree that this is a $2 billion business, then the first step, I think, is to understand how the business makes money. The business has made it easier for us. They divided their segments into 3 segments, right? They call the first one the productivity and business processes. The intelligent cloud is the second one, and then of course more personal computing is the third segment. Now let's see for the first business, which is a productivity business. Now this productivity business competes with, or rather, it tracks revenue from things like, we can see here Office 365 subscriptions, right? We can see things like LinkedIn here, dynamic business solutions, and CRM, right? And the business tells us that, growth in this area of business is going to really depend on the business's ability to reach new users in new market, right? Of course, it's also talked about is Office 365 businesses, right? And of course, we can see Outlook, we can see OneDrive. All of these things are driven by subscriptions services. Of course, we can also see that LinkedIn is also a part of this business, right? Far from being just a professional networking tool, LinkedIn is also a huge source of revenue for the business. In fact, I think the business LinkedIn profit grew about 20%, in that period of time. Now, it says here that, for example, some of the services other than just, what's it called, just using LinkedIn as a social media, or as a professional networking site is that they provide different um, services such as talent solutions, learning solutions, to close critical gaps, skill gaps, in the times where company are having to do more with existing talent. All right. So these are some of the areas that this business operates in. But it's important or it's imperative to know that this business is not without competition in that area. So if you look at further down on that same place, you see that competition to Office, for example, includes softwares and global application vendors such as Apple, Cisco Systems, Facebook, Google, IBM, Proofpoint, Slack, Zoom, numerous web-based platforms, as well as local application developers. So we can understand that the business, has a lot of competition, and for them to survive, for example, they need to innovate very well. And I think one of the key areas I've seen Microsoft innovate in the last year is with the deployment of Microsoft Teams. Now we know that during the pandemic, Zoom came in, and swept, right, everyone off their feet. But we can't forget that there has been softwares like Skype already in place, owned by Microsoft. But I think Microsoft was able to dig deep, and then of course launch Teams, as a business solution to critical acclaim, right? And of course, many businesses use Teams. In fact, Microsoft is even pushing Teams, down to the throats of other consumers right now, or the more generic users, individual users. I think I saw an article recently online where, as part of Windows 11, Teams is going to be included natively. So we can see that this business is trying to do everything it is to be able to survive and keep up to the times. All right. The second area is intelligent cloud. Now, intelligent cloud is the second business segment of this business. Now, intelligent cloud consists of things such as Azure, right? Server products, cloud services, and enterprise services. But the standout service here is the Azure, right? The Microsoft Azure, and the revenue is mainly affected by infrastructure as a service and platform as a service, consumption-based services, right? So what is Azure about? It's just really people and businesses trying to put in, services on the cloud, right? And Microsoft is there to provide us services for people. And of course, when you are hosting, platforms and all of those things. All right. That said, we also see here that Azure faces competition from companies such as Amazon, right? Google, IBM. I think Amazon is well known for its Amazon Web Services. So these are things that directly compete with Microsoft on this aspect of their business. Nonetheless, we can move to the next segment, which is the more personal computing segment. I think on this non-personal computing, Microsoft kind of holds sway. It's more competitive for them. We see that it consists of things like Windows. Windows is really prevalent. Yes, I know we have competition like Linux or the Mac OS, but Windows is really a big deal. And then, of course, they have devices, including Surface and PC accessories. Then, of course, we have gaming, which includes Xbox, Xbox content and the likes, right? So these are areas that the business is able to generate revenue from. And then, of course, we know that all of these things are going to depend, on whether or not it can ship enough Windows devices, whether or not it can ship Xbox devices, as we've seen during the pandemic. All right. That said, we'll then go ahead and look at some of the revenue, right, for each of these different segments, right? The results from each of the segments of operation. So if we look at the results, we can see that intelligent cloud, productivity rather, and business processes, intelligent cloud and more personal computing, all brought in a revenue of almost $48 million $48 billion dollars, pardon me. All right. And so they kind of contribute almost equally in 2020 to the $143 billion dollars revenue that this business was able to generate. All right, but we can see when we look at the growth, right, we can see that the business that grew the most was intelligent cloud, right? And so we can tell that this is one big area that the business should continue to focus on, right? But we can also see that the more personal computing business grew the least. So we can expect that the business is going to put some kind of focus on that area to ensure that the growth in that area increases. Fortunately for that growth area, we can see that it contributes the second highest, just behind the personal and the intelligent cloud. It contributes about 24%, or rather the growth in operating income for that area increased by 24%, right, comparing 2020 to 2019. So nonetheless, I believe that Microsoft is a business that is going to continue to grow. In spite of the many competitions. Like we said, LinkedIn Learning is competing with Coursera and Skillshare. Skype is going to keep competing, or Skype and Teams are going to keep competing with Zoom. Azure is going to keep competing with Amazon Web Services. Xbox is going to keep competing with PlayStations. Bing is going to keep competing with Google Search and Facebook Search, right? Facebook advertising. Surface is going to keep competing with the MacBooks and Android devices, and Windows is going to keep competing with Linux, and the Mac OS, right? Now, all of this said, I kind of see a trend here. This is a business that is competing on all fronts with various businesses and is still thriving. It's able to build a $2 billion market capitalization just because it has its business in almost everyone's business. Right. Sometimes you might say that it is not the best at many of the things it does, right? So, for example, you look at the Bing search, you can see that it's not the best, right? That many people over here in the part of the country where I come from do not think of Bing as search, right, as a first thing. But of course, there are other areas it excel, right? So, LinkedIn, for example, is one area, right, that when you talk about social media, professional networking, that's the first name that comes to mind. So I believe that the business is in different areas and therefore it has a lot of opportunities to shine and to break through. Now, just to take a very quick look at the fundamentals of this business, right? So if we look here, we can see that over the last 5 years, the business has grown the share price rather has grown about 400%. Compared to 100% on the S&P 500, right? So this is a business that is performing or outperforming the market, at least in the last 5 years. So that's one of the reasons why I'm going to be investing in the business. Also, we can look at the financial strength of the business, the fundamentals. It trades at the price to sales of about 12 times, right? So what is price to sales? So if you look at the current price the business is selling at and compare that to the sales, it is selling, the business is trading at 12 times, the price at which, or the amount of revenue it's able to bring in, right? So, like we said, it was able to bring in a total revenue of 143 billion, right? So just multiply that by 12 and you can see that's the market capitalization. The same thing with the price to book ratio. That we can see it's selling at about this is Google. All right, so I should be looking, let me just change this here to present my screen to MSFT. Sorry. All right. Okay, so the statistics then should tie up right now. So if you look at the price to books, it's price to sale is selling at 12 times, and then, okay, thank you, here we go. So price to sales at 12 times and the price to book at 14 times. All right, now, in terms of profitability, we can see here it has a gross margin of 68%. That's massive, that's a lot, right? And then, of course, the net profit margin is about 35%. Interesting statistics there. Then we can look at the management effectiveness, return on assets about 18%, return on equity about 45%, right, which we have here. So these are impressive numbers for any business and for a technology business. In fact, if you look at this side note here, right, we are told that the return of equity for Microsoft shows that it is able to reinvest earnings more efficiently than 94% of its competitor in the software industry. All right, so before I go further, I would just like to say the return on the assets is, in essence, the total returns, right, on the assets that Microsoft has in its business. So just to demystify some of those things, whereas the return on equity is the total returns, that's how much it makes based on the total amount of equity that it has in the business, the total amount of what the shareholders has invested in that business. Okay, the other thing I would say is the dividend yield. So if you look at the dividend yield, for example, you can see the business has a dividend yield of 0.84%. So it's a dividend paying business. And then its payout ratio is about almost 30%. All right, that said, let's talk about the potentials for growth for Microsoft. I believe that Windows 11, right, hopefully the business gets it right because it has a track record of hit and miss in terms of its softwares, right? So the potential for growth, I think, is really around Windows 10, rather Windows 11, and of course a good user experience in terms of what the customers or the people are able to expect. But I think many people are really locked into the Windows ecosystem, and that shouldn't really affect the business regardless of how it does, And of course, we believe that even if it does bad with Windows 11, it's going to be able to reiterate and invest the next and release rather the next version very quickly. All right, server business, if you look already at the last report that this business released, the 2021 Q2 report, we can see that this business continues to grow. For example, the server business, the Azure business grew by, about 50% already, in Q2 2021. So this business continues to grow. LinkedIn grew by 23%, right? Okay, here you go. LinkedIn grew about 23%, yeah, and then of course Azure, like we said, grew about 50%. So this is a business that is not slowing down, right? And then, of course, Xbox and content services continues to grow about 40% Q2 2021. Now, just to tie this up, right, I would say I'll really then have to go to, something I saw in the financial report as stated by the CEO of Microsoft, right? And that's, I think, one area, that the business is going to really have to continue to focus on, and I'm happy it is a priority for them, right? So if you look at this excerpt from the chairman's statement, it says that gaming is the most expansive category in the entertainment industry. 3 billion people around the world look to gaming for entertainment, community, achievement, and the ambition of Microsoft is to empower each of them whenever they play. All right, so Xbox Pass for Microsoft currently has about 15 million subscribers, and so the business expects that it's going to continue to grow, right? And, if the business can continue to improve, on its gaming, the offerings, give good incentives to developers, then I believe it's going to continue to grow, right? Now, a key thing here is on the app stores, right? One of the key recent press releases says here that Microsoft will let developers keep every penny their Windows app make unless it's game. So I think this is going to support the Windows 11 store, the Windows 11 ecosystem, continue to attract developers, to develop for the Windows 11 store, right? But in terms of the games, right, we can see here that Microsoft says that it's going to even reduce, right, the amount that it charges or the cut of revenue that it takes from game revenues from 30% to 12% starting from August 1st of August. So these are incentives that the business are going to continue to give to developers, to game developers, to ensure that they have a really, really competitive offering, on the platform. And I believe this is key to the growth of the business. Finally, in terms of the price estimates, we can see here, already that the price estimate for Microsoft, according to analysts, is somewhere in the range of 275 to about 350. And I think that the business is going to be able to achieve these price objectives, right? And that's exactly why I'm going to be investing in the business. So long as the business is going to continue to develop its cloud services, is going to continue to invest, right, in the gaming industry, right, or in the gaming platform, the content, it has a goal to increase the subscriber base from about 18 million, right now, to about 100 million, over a period of time. If it's able to provide community, right, for people, then I believe that this business is going to continue to grow. And that's exactly why I am investing in Microsoft. All right, if you like this kind of content, feel free to feel free to subscribe to the channel, join the journey, share your comments in the section below. Tell me how you're investing. Let me know how you're investing and what your investment strategy is. Do you think Microsoft is a great business to invest in? And of course, let me know if you are inspired to start investing, by transparent view like this of me sharing my video or of me sharing my portfolio with everyone all here. So by the next time I see you guys, I would have invested in Microsoft. Stay safe and see you guys next time. Until then, peace. Bye.